All right, thanks for staying with us here. It's 1 p.m. on the East Coast. I'm John Bachman.
And I'm Bianca Della Garza. We're bringing you special coverage of Putin's war in Ukraine. Today marks 1 year, in fact, since Russia's invasion. What Putin originally called a special military operation. What you're seeing here is some new drone footage that just came in from the Bachman region, showing there's complete destruction, shelled buildings, crumbled infrastructure, and of course, empty streets. What was once a thriving salt mining city in eastern Ukraine, now a ghost town.
Putin's defenses, though, are still on the attack, claiming to have destroyed Ukrainian military sites. You can see this video here. It shows Russian paratroopers maneuvering into position and firing on Ukrainian troops. Russia's defense ministry says forces have captured a stronghold held by Ukraine.
And the Ukrainian army is saying that Putin has launched more than 5,000 missile strikes and 3,500 airstrikes on Ukraine since the start of the invasion 1 year ago today. Hundreds of thousands have been killed, including thousands of civilians. More than 14 million people displaced. Many fled into nearby Poland, but others far beyond.
The White House also recently announced new sanctions today against Russia and its allies. They're targeting 200 individuals and entities, including a dozen Russian financial institutions. The Biden administration says these measures will focus on key sectors that generate revenue for Vladimir Putin.
An interesting note here, after reporting all week that Russia may be supplying, China may be supplying Russia with lethal weapons. Today, Beijing is now calling for a ceasefire and peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. The Chinese government released a 12-point plan today, calling for a gradual de-escalation in the region. And also today, just a short time ago, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was speaking during a news conference, and he gave support to China's peace plan. According to the Associated Press, Zelensky saying, quote, "The fact that China started talking about Ukraine is not bad."
He said, though, the proof is in the pudding, and we'll see what steps are taken next. The Pentagon also says it will send a new $2 billion package for long-term security assistance to Ukraine. The aid includes more rounds of ammo, weapons to counter Russians' unmanned drones, and several types of other, the Switchblade kamikaze drones we've heard so much about, and other electronic equipment as well.
Now we have Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock is rejecting claims also by China, claims that the West is adding fuel to the fire by arming Ukraine. The foreign minister just yesterday countering the claims by telling Beijing to tell Russia to stop its aggression. But the deputy Chinese envoy to the UN, seen here, intervened at a UN General Assembly, presenting itself as above the conflict, while also proposing a ceasefire measure, open dialogue, and security guarantees for Russia.
Let's welcome in now former U.S. Ambassador to Germany under President Trump, Ric Grenell. Great to see you, Ambassador.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
Interesting to see the dynamics playing out here with Germany and China would just love to play the role of peacemaker here and really get to influence this decision, because they care most about China, of course, and how that peace process, quote unquote, would benefit them.
Look, this is infuriating for those of us who have worked at the State Department for a long time, who care about peace, who try to avoid war, because we know China is disingenuous. We're very clear-eyed about the fact that China is helping Russia, but they just embarrassed the United States on the world stage because China jumped out with a peace plan. Now, look, some of the points in this peace plan are good. Some of these are great starters. We have to be very clear-eyed about the fact that the Chinese are not serious peace negotiators. They are playing for the Russians, and we have to be very careful on that. But they have just shoved the United States off the world stage at the UN by being the first ones to put forward a comprehensive peace plan. Again, it's not a great peace plan in its current form. But what they did is they tried to, at least in talk, come out and pretend like they're the ones that are looking for peace. Again, we know that they should not be taken seriously because we see what they're doing to Taiwan, for instance. But the reality is that they've pushed the United States to a position where now we are going to have to react to the Chinese rather than have a peace plan of our own. I've been calling for weeks on Antony Blinken to actually do something. He's got his own plane, fly to all sorts of different capitals in Europe and try to put together a peace plan. I disagree with the Wall Street Journal editorial board, where they said it's not even worth trying or seeking a peace plan. Of course it's worth seeking a peace plan. We're clear-eyed that it's going to be difficult. We're clear-eyed that the Russians and the Chinese are working together. But the United States of America should be the country that stands for peace and should have a peace plan, a good, tough peace plan that we put forward. Again, now we're going to have to react to the Chinese. This is awful.
Yeah, and it's not the first time where Biden and this administration has been reacting, and that has been the criticism. Here we are now a year into this conflict, and many say, you know, we look like we're entering more of escalation. We know that Xi will be actually going to Moscow to meet with Putin, Ambassador Grenell, and to discuss what? We won't know. I mean, it's an interesting kind of time here, because if you want to have diplomatic talks, yes, we know today Blinken is meeting with Antonio Guterres at the UN Security Council meeting, but at the same time, as you've articulated here, there also has to be force and strength. Where do you think we go next here when it comes to the conflict, it comes to some of the munitions and things that are going in the war, to at least maybe offer some deterrence where Putin maybe is forced to the hand to talk peace?
I think those are really good questions. And first of all, Anthony Blinken is wasting his time by going to the UN. Well, Putin and Xi are talking. This is where the action is. And now we've got Zelensky complimenting the Chinese. Look, we're the ones who are giving money. The American taxpayers are giving billions of dollars to this. We need to have diplomats who are serious, who are out front trying to solve this problem, rather than just letting the Chinese outmaneuver us. This is infuriating to watch, because the State Department is being shoved aside. Foreign Service officers should be outraged at what's happening to their State Department. And I'll also say this: why aren't we doing serious sanctions? Why aren't we sanctioning the Russian oil entities? Why are we not saying to other countries, you can't buy Russian oil? We're on the margins. We're late with sanctions. It's half measures. It's always late. There is no strategy with this team, and it has to stop. We're spending way too much money, and we are the United States of America. We should be at the forefront of leading the world with a peace plan.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Ambassador Grenell. Whether it's the peace plan or the sanctions, everything does appear to be a half measure. It was, you know, the initial response to the buildup of troops on the border of Ukraine from Joe Biden. They're always scared of what's going to happen in response, and so they're always playing catch up and being responsive instead of being proactive. And how do you win a war when you're always on the defensive?
Look, we should have learned this lesson before we hired Joe Biden, because the reality is, as the Senate Foreign Relations chairman of the committee in charge of all foreign relations, Joe Biden was a disaster, and everybody knows this. He was on the wrong side of every foreign policy issue. He was backwards. He was late, and now he's got a team of people at the State Department, at the NSC, who are just as slow and just as behind.
And it was his old boss, President Obama, who had that infamous quote about Joe Biden: never underestimate his ability, and I'll just say, to mess things up. That's what Obama said about Joe Biden. Great to see you, Ric Grenell. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ambassador.
All the best to you.